When I first wrote my book, I was 40 years old. My children grew up, and there I was. I had, worked very hard to become a respiratory therapist. I went to school while my children were growing up, and I found that I wasn't happy for some reason. There was something in my life that was keeping me from feeling happy about myself and making the right choices. And I've always been a very spiritual person, and I didn't understand how can this be? How can I feel this? So I had to step back a little bit and look at myself and see what it was that I was putting into my life today that was making me feel the way that I did in my life. What was I doing that was contributing to this? Although I felt like a victim, I lived a victim's life most of my life up until I was 40 years old. And I didn't understand how could I have brought myself, I'm such a strong woman, had lots of, we had a lot of women in our family, and how I could feel this way. And I found that when I talked about it, and it's great to talk about it. People always say, well, you need to talk about your abuse to get it out, but that's all I did was talk about it and get more angry. It kind of escalated. And when I felt like a victim, it made me feel as if when bad things happened, it was always, they were doing it to me. And I didn't want to feel that way anymore. So I had to step back and take a journey towards change in my life. And when I did that, I had to say, okay, I have to look at myself and look at denial. I cannot deny what I'm doing. This happened to me when I was younger, but I'm causing my abuse to be in my life every single day, that I'm denying the fact that I'm not a victim anymore. So after I started doing that, I was very honest with myself. I went into my triggers. Then I said, okay, I don't want to be a victim anymore. So I needed to look at these triggers. And triggers are those things that we do, that people do innocently to us, that we take offense to. And I had to change that in my life. I had to rewire my brain. We have connections in our brains that, that we associate, electrons that associate certain parts of our experiences and things that we've gone through. And that's the kind of thing I wanted to do. I wanted to work on my triggers. So I had to change my triggers from a better thought or action to rewire my brain. So that way I could live a life of peace and not have so much frustration in my life. Changing that thought to a better thought and action. And as soon as I was able to do that, then I had to say, okay, I'm still angry. Even though I'm changing all these triggers, I still feel angry. And it took me 2 years to go through this because it really took a lot of work, because it didn't happen overnight. So I said, okay, now I have to look at the anger, but okay, I'm hurt. So I had to feel the hurt without feeling angry in my life. So what I did was I would allow it. I would just allow myself to feel the hurt, and I would go through each event. And there were times when I have a half an hour ride to work, and I would cry at the top of my lungs. I'm sure the people that were driving by were wondering what was going on in my car. But, and that's what I would do. I would allow it. I would allow myself to feel it without being angry. Because once I brought that anger into my life, then just things started just going away. And I'm not saying I was perfect with it. I was not perfect. There were times when I went backwards. There was times when the triggers got to me and things like that, but I just kept pursuing forward and forward and forward. So once I was able to allow myself to feel the hurt, then what I did was I wanted to create good memories for myself. I said, you know what? This is in my past. I don't have to deal with this anymore. And I wanted to look at it in a more different way. That's what it's all about, allowing and discovering, discover and allow yourself to be who you were born to be, is all about looking back. And once I started looking back at these events, then I started realizing that this is actually who I'm supposed to be. These events that I went through in my life brought me to where I am. I wouldn't be able to work in the field that I do if I didn't have these experiences. I mean, There were times when we never went to the doctor. I had to get over infections by myself and things like that. But you know what? I'm around people coughing all over me. I mean, I have a very good immune system because of it. It made me very empathetic towards people. It made me realize, and it made me stronger. So, you know, if you look back at your life, somewhere along the line, you can see, well, that prepared me for this. Everything that we go through prepares us for the next event in our life. And we really need to allow these things we need to bless them instead of feeling like it was a curse. And, you know, for many years I felt very different because of everything that I went through. And that was another thing. I had to look at ego. I was able to, I don't know if anybody's ever read a book, Be Here Now by Ron Ross. Back in the 60s he came out with it. But he talks about ego and how living in the now and appreciating everything that we go through. And I had to look at ego, and I didn't really understand what ego was about, and I was able to talk with him. And I said, Mom, Gosh, what is ego? I don't understand. Is ego just vanity? You know, you're looking at yourself in the mirror? Or, you know, I just really did not understand it. And he said, you know, when you're aware of ego, you're able to see other people as a soul. And I said, okay. And so then I started saying, you know, he said, look at it in a daily life and look at your own ego. And the way I see it is, ego is something that was keeping me from being who I really wanted to be. I worried too much about what people thought. I worried too much about whether I was doing the right thing. So I allowed myself to get rid of ego. And if you kind of watch it, you know, I got this thing called ego pong that I call ego pong, that when people, you know, it's a conversation between 2 or 3 people, and they're kind of trying to outdo each other. And if you look back, and there's plenty of times I joined right in, you know, and but I was able to look at ego and bring in things into my life and get outside of that box without worrying about what people thought. And it helped me to allow myself to move towards the future. And so once I got rid of ego, I started saying, okay, so I started making good memories for myself. And I started taking all the memories that I had as a child, the good ones, and remembering them. Now I look back and I think I had a great childhood. If you would have asked me 3 or 4 years ago, I would have talked your ear off, trust me. You know, because I was very angry. But, you know, everybody has their own personal journey that they take in life. We change constantly. You know, from the day we are born to the day we pass away, and maybe even in the afterlife, we're constantly changing. And when we look at these changes, we look at them with, sometimes we look at change as bad. Change is good. That was one thing I didn't like. I didn't like change. It took me outside, you know, it made me feel very insecure. I didn't like it. It was something new. But I had to accept change, and I was able to do that. And, you know, Dr. Dyer, I don't know if anybody knows Dr. Dyer, but he has a very good saying. It says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that is so true. Because if you look at things differently and look at your past as something that is supposed to be, it's supposed to allow yourself to be, it's supposed to be who you are. It's not something that, you know, you have to listen to it very carefully. Because even as a young child, I look back and I wanted to go to school to be a nurse. And as my years went on, you know, that wasn't supposed to be, because I took the test and I kept taking the entry test and I kept failing. And I was like, but how can this happen to me? You know, I've prepared myself. I went through all these classes and I can't understand why I'm doing so bad on a simple test. And so everybody kept saying, why don't you go to school for respiratory? And I said, I don't want to go to school for respiratory. I want to be a nurse. And I would get mad at people for that. So finally I said, okay, they have a 2-year waiting list. It seems like it's taking me forever to take this test. So I applied for the respiratory course, and the next day I got a phone call. And now that I look back, I think, oh my gosh, I am so a respiratory therapist. I could never be a nurse. And it fit me perfectly. And when I was a child, things that I went through, and, you know, just things that I went through. And so it really made me realize, well, this is really who I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be a respiratory therapist. So if we look back and we see all those things, we can start to realize that, yes, okay, I had some bad bumps in the road, even bad experiences. When we have bad experiences in life, it doesn't have to be your childhood. It could be something that happened to you in life that you just can't seem to get rid of. And so you look at it and say to yourself, okay, you know what? I'm going to change the way I look at it. I'm going to look at it and figure out why did I go through this? What good things did I get out of it? Who did it make me? Did it make me different? Did it, what people have I been in contact with since this? Can I help other people because of it? And it's very, very, very important to really look at these things. I mean, look at some of the things that impact the world that we live in that come from bad things. When things happen to children, they create a new law. It's unfortunate, but there's so many good things that can come out of it. And if you can change the way you look at them and realize it, your life becomes much more happier, it becomes much more calming, it becomes much more settling. We all deserve to be happy in life. That's one thing that I tell everybody. We deserve to be happy in life. Everybody does. It's very important to be happy. Because, it's like if you have a cake and you have a bowl of mud. Which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick the mud? I don't think so. You're going to pick the cake. It's the same thing with picking positive versus negativity. Pick positive. If you feel like there's something in your life that you've done to somebody else, don't kick yourself in the butt for it. Just keep moving forward. Try to make amends with the best way that you can and say, look, I made a mistake. I was a very young mother. I was a mother at 20 years old, and me and my children, we struggled when they were young. And there's things that my kids go, Mom, would you stop? You were such a good mom. But there's things where I go, I'm really sorry that I did that. Because, there's times when you don't have people that do things to you say you're sorry. And that was another thing that I went through. I wanted, my mother made me realize that. She goes, Donna, he's not going to come to you and get down on his knees and say he's sorry. It's not going to happen. You got to get over it. And that's when I realized that, okay, but it created such a frustrating feeling for me. So that's why I do that with my children now. I'm like, I'm sorry that, I didn't let you have lollipops when you were a kid or something like that, But, so that was something else I had to go through, was the frustration of not being able to say, look, this happened to me, and I'm frustrated over it, but he's not going to say he's sorry, so it doesn't really matter. And I invited that person into my life every single day that I did not let it go. And I didn't, when it happened, did I want to do that? No, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to bring that into my life. So that's some of the things that I went through. Creating good memories, just letting go of ego, realizing that life isn't that bad. And as I started to change, I went through so much in the last 3 years that you would not believe the change in my life is for the better. I wake up happy. There are some days, I will tell you, that I wake up and I feel, I feel like something's going to happen, or how can that happen? I'm having family over. How can I feel like, everything's doomed, and why do I feel so bad? It's supposed to be a happy day. So I had to remind myself and say, I am safe. I am safe. And I do that often. Sometimes I think, oh, it's coming back. And that's what I tell myself, I am safe. And I keep telling myself that until I believe it. And then eventually I don't have to say it anymore during the evening or whatever. But it's just the triggers of rewiring our brain and changing our thought pattern and realizing that we deserve to be happy. And that's, let me see what else I got here. Good memories. Learn to accept it. Learn to accept your change. When you finally get your change and things start happening, you really have to accept it, because we feel like when you come from abuse, you feel like you don't deserve to be happy. And sometimes happiness makes you feel as if, because there's things that happen to you when you're younger and you feel good about it, so you associate them with happiness. And we feel like we don't deserve to be happy. And we do deserve to be happy. And you have to accept change. You have to accept the change and let it, just allow yourself to be who you are and who you're supposed to be. And don't allow other people to make you feel down about yourself. That's the ego. I have a saying that jealousy is ego's way of making us feel as if we're not good enough. And if you want somebody to be jealous of you, it's ego's way of making us feel we need to be accepted, or we need approval, sorry. And that's exactly how ego works. Ego can change your thoughts throughout your day. I mean, you can get going and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to wear this clown hat today, and it makes me happy, and I don't care what anybody says. And then you get out into the world, and people are laughing at you, or, you know, who cares? I mean, half the time when you see people out doing something kind of strange, so what? You know, it doesn't really matter. And from working as a respiratory therapist, I found that life changes very quickly for a lot of people. And all that really matters is that we take the moments and enjoy the now. Sometimes it's very hard because we live in a very quick-paced life. And things have to be instant. And when we create something or a goal that we want in life, nowadays we just expect it to happen very quickly. And that's not how the universe works sometimes. So enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride, enjoy each step, enjoy each thing that you accomplish, and welcome it. And once you plant those seeds, eventually your harvest will come. And you will be able to, but you have to have patience. I do have a new edition that's coming out. This is the book. This is the old edition. I didn't bring any because I'm coming out with a new edition. And that should be out in January. So I did leave everybody a paper. I didn't put my address on there, but my email address is on there if you decide that you want it. To save you a copy, I'll autograph it for you and mail it to you. You can just send it, I'll send you the address. And then you can, you can order the book through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of those. It still will have the same number, the ISBN number and stuff, so you can order that. And that's all I have to say, and thank you very much for inviting me.